Hola, welcome back to the YapaTree channel where we help current and future expats of Cuenca. Today we have a very special treat for you, a deep dive into the world of shipping with none other than the fantastic Ana Herington, an attorney specializing in Ecuador's importing and exporting requirements. You may also know Ana as the admin of Cuenca's largest Facebook group. I'm your host, Jason, and let's jump right in. All right, Ana, let's start with the basics. You provide a lot of assistance to Cuenca's expats community through the administration of the Cuenca Expats and Friends Facebook group. It's a fantastic group, and I really do thank you, but it also seems like a lot of selfless effort. I know you're extremely busy, so why do you choose to help expats so much?
Oh, well, Jason, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is such a pleasure, such an honor that finally we're having this nice meeting, you and me. Probably one of the most important reasons that I am doing this, it's because I love to help people. That's the main thing. Way back when I came here to Cuenca in 2019 with my husband, he's from Texas, by the way. We were, especially for my husband, was easy for him to try to find also expats that help him to somehow understand and know a little bit more about the Cuenca culture. We made a lot of friends in that time. I met at that time the previous administrator from the Cuenca expats, Richard Minking, who unfortunately he passed a year ago. So we were friends since 2019. He passed. I was already helping him to administrate the group. I gave him a word that I will keep doing this for the Cuenca expats community, and here I am. That's
awesome. My understanding is that you were an expat in a different country at some point.
Yeah, and also I was an expat actually. I lived in Chile 6 years when I went to law school there. And I understand how expats feel in a completely different country, even though that Chile is they speak the same language, but it was a completely different culture. So, knowing where to go, and I was, as a student, no family there, it was kind of like a challenge to somehow understand how that new culture works. So
absolutely. There's a lot of challenges that do present themselves when you move to a new place. That's our motivation, or my motivation as well. I've lived in a bunch of different countries, and invariably the person that's helping you with that adjustment to that country,
absolutely,
or the people, they make a huge difference in just how much you're going to enjoy the first 3 months, first 6 months in particular. So there's a lot of effort, Ana, and I do appreciate the amount of time that you put into running the Facebook group. So thanks for sharing why you run the Facebook group. But from a higher level, I know that you're basically one of the only customs and shipping gurus that I would personally go to in Ecuador. So can you just tell us a little bit about that background? Because I know a lot of expats kind of understand you do something when it comes to customs and shipping, but I think a lot of the details are lost.
Yeah, well, I am a customs agent. My specialty is basically importations, exportations, and the entire aspects that involves importations and exportation. It can be commercial importations, or it can be household goods shipments. It can be, well, as a customs agent, I personally do not do courier because that's more like a personal process that you can do. You don't need a customs agent for courier. We're talking about like small shipments, like the 4x4 category. But for importations, commercial importations that actually start from $5,000 and more, and actually the weight is also from 100 kilos and more, it's considered a commercial importation, and that's when I I do my job, my work. So it is very, very for me. It's been probably 18 years doing this.
Wow.
My father, who is also a lawyer in customs, he started this firm 30 years ago. And of course, once I came back from Chile, it was the normal thing for me the passion. The only thing that I've ever known is this world of importations and logistics, and it's for me it's fascinating. It's fascinating because you never stop learning. Everything constantly changes, especially in Ecuadorian customs. Everything changes every day.
I have no doubt. And so your day-to-day, your bread and butter is basically figuring out how to get stuff through customs. Is that it in a nutshell, or is it more complex?
My expertise is I know all the law, all the process, all the regulations that the Ecuadorian customs ask to every importer to do the clearance here in Ecuador.
Got it.
So that's my expertise.
Yeah.
And of course, we also work with partners. For example, my big partner friend is Vicky Spitzak from Ecuador Moves, who I have a gigantic respect for her, not only as a friend, but also as a professional. She knows a lot about logistics. So that's how we actually met. We met through the same passion that we have, that we share for shipments, for logistics.
So for household goods, that's traditionally what Ecuador Moves specializes in?
Ecuador Moves, her specialty is household goods shipments.
Great.
All the logistics, all the shipments. They have, they have their whole agents in the U.S. and of course they have their Ecuadorian agent here in Ecuador. So yeah.
Fantastic. Now that's very helpful. So if you need some household goods shipped to Ecuador, you'd go to someone like Ecuador Moves, and then they would start the paperwork with the logistics. But then when it comes to the actual customs clearance side of things, that's where you in particular jump in and work your magic.
I am for household goods shipments, I am part of Ecuador Moves. I am the customs agent for Ecuador Moves. So basically, the Vicky is basically the brain, and she's the head of Ecuador Moves, and she hires me. Vicky is my friend and my partner and my client, and we have worked together perfectly. So if you want to go and get more information about household goods shipments, you definitely need to contact Vicky.
Sure. We'll chuck the link in the description for anyone looking. So that's very important that we do have a reference that we can potentially action these things with. But let's get to some of the questions. I know that you've basically been bombarded with a bunch of questions, especially at this time of the year, Christmas shopping, and everyone wants their stuff and they want it now. I'm one of them. I'm waiting for some stuff and I'm a little bit nervous as to whether or not it's going to arrive. So I'm really glad that you're here to chat today. So the first question we have, Anna, is for someone that's gearing up to ship a package to Ecuador, what are the key things they should know?
Wow, that's a very, very important question to know. First of all, I will say, do not, I don't want to put it like trust, but do not listen to what they tell you in origin. Let's say, for example, you are in the US or you have a family in the US. Your family wants to send you a package, a gift for Christmas, and they just go to, I don't know, I don't want to call any companies, but let's say they go to UFF courier, okay? So they go to UFF, it's an example, and they say, you want to send, I don't know, used clothes, or you want to send money with the used clothes. And they will take the package. They will never say, we are not aware of the regulations in customs in Ecuador. Once it arrives, they will provide the service. They will take the package. But once it arrives here, that's when you get stuck with the problems in customs. So you sometimes, and it's not our fault. It's sometimes it's because from origin they're not aware of all the regulations that we have here.
And do people normally get like stumped on the types of goods, or where do the issues generally arise?
There are couriers that they understand some of the rules here in Ecuador. They actually. I know that some of them, they say, no, we cannot ship this, but at the same time also they don't have the entire information or the correct information. There are some things that have exceptions that you can bring, but they don't know it. So that's why it's so important to go to if you are basically, if you don't probably you're hesitating about what should I do, what can I bring, try to, if you don't find a customs agent, well, if you cannot contact me, which it's very easy to contact me, but try to go to the main website of Aduana, aduana.gov.ec. That's the main website where you have all the answers of all the different categories, the 4x4, the courier, what can I bring, what can I not bring.
We were looking at it before and it's been updated recently, right? It looked like it had some good information there.
It has all the information you need. The only thing that probably you're not going to see that it's not been updated is the list of the personal effects that you can bring with you as a passenger. Because even for that, there are also limits. It's not that because I'm coming with my luggage, I just can bring a lot of things and a bunch of things because it's me, it's mine. No, there are also restrictions. And there's actually a published list on the main website of the Senai. Unfortunately, I checked the website and that list has not been updated because have been changes since September from this year, which basically the list of personal effects, the things that I can bring with me, has actually changed.
Sure. Let's get to that in a little bit. I think that's really important when we're talking about, so there's two things, right? Shipping at the point of origin with a courier company or something like that. And then there's the items you're bringing on, your personal effects, I think they call them. So we're going to get to that in a little bit. For now, let's just say it's a normal package that we're trying to send from the US into Ecuador. Is there certain information that we need to be clear about including on the package? Like what sort of documentation are we normally looking at?
Well, there is actually the things that probably you need to know what not to bring, what I cannot bring, but any aspect. And those things is money. You cannot ship money, even if you want to put it inside of an envelope and try to make it look like documents. No, that's a big no. No.
No amount, like even, I don't know, a couple $100?
No.
Nothing.
Nothing. Nothing. The courier, first of all, these couriers, they will always scan envelopes. At least I know DHL do it. We are the customs agent for DHL Express here in Ecuador, by the way. So we know how DHL, the process is when they receive a package. They scan everything, they open, they check, they verify, and they ship it. Definitely, and of course, if they see money, they will just return it, and they're not going to accept it. Jewelry. Is that correct that I say jewelry?
Jewelry, yeah.
My husband always say that I don't say jewelry. Anyway, sorry about that. So no jewelry, no gold, no silver. That's a big no-no. No use clothes for any reason. No use clothes. Oh, I want to send my hiking boots. I'm gonna send it through a courier. No, you cannot ship used clothes. No.
So it has to have a label or something to indicate that it's brand new.
It has to be new clothes. It has to be new clothes. The only way to ship through a courier clothes, and not all the amount of clothes that I want, it has a restriction, of course, which is by the category 4x4. But we can talk about that in a minute. But only if it's new clothes. So for everything, even for sending a packet, for everything, there are restrictions, and people are going to say, why Ecuadorian customs is so restrictive? Why they're so...
Yeah, why?
Well,
it's frustrating. I've had issues with customs. I've had quite a few issues with customs.
Well, I've been dealing... Sorry, Senai, but we've been dealing as customs agents with a public institution. It's bureaucratic, unfortunately. And the problem is that customs works as a... They just, their main mission is to collect taxes. It's basically that. And somehow it always depends on the on who is running right now the entire Senai, that direction might change. I have to say that the last director from Senai that we just had recently, he tried to change that direction of only just being a collector of taxes, but also provide and facilitate people a service. So it also depends on the direction that.
Do you have any indication of where the new president is looking to go in terms of customs?
The new direction.
Yeah.
Well, I know that there's a new director, a new lady. She has been named recently, and I know she will be probably by now. Is right now in directing the new Senai.
Sure, but it's too early to say exactly where
I don't.
they want to go.
I'm gonna meet her soon. I mean, every director that it's been for the last periods of. I always go and we have meetings because it's important to know, who is the director and how it's the direction it's gonna take. The last director, Rab Swastegi, my good friend. We had a meeting, and I knew the direction that he was going to take, which was like, I don't want to keep having this image of like just collecting taxes. I want to be a facilitator. I want to provide a service. And I on the short time that he was running, he did a pretty good job. Yeah, he made actually very good changes that I'm going to tell you in a minute.
Awesome. Looking forward to hearing about those. But just moving on to some of the import categories, and in particular, some of the limits. And the main category, or the only real category I want to focus on a tiny bit is the 4x4, because I personally find that category to be quite useful, but it does have its limitations, and it can be quite confusing to use it, especially when you've got some services like Tienda Mia. They seem to operate under the 4x4 category, and they'll basically block off items if they think that it's not going to be appropriate for the 4x4 category. But then how well do they actually know what those rules are? That's the...
Yeah. Well, I've seen, and I've done my my little research on Tienda Mia, and I think they do a pretty good job.
Great.
They're very aware of the limits. And if something is out of the limits, they let you know, like, sorry, this is, over the category 4x4, which basically, for the ones that they don't know what 4x4 is basically that you have a benefit. The Ecuadorian customs give you a benefit of bringing personal packages for your personal use that are under the weight of 4 kilos or 8 pounds, 8.5 pounds, or 4 kilos. And the total package, and I'm talking about the total weight and the total cost of your package, cannot be more than 4 kilos and more than $400. So you need to have those two conditions to be in the category 4x4, or you can have one of those, but never like 5 kilos, but my package costs $100. No. Definitely will not fit in that category.
Yep. And in terms of the other main exceptions, I know, or you tell me, does it still exist that you can only do a certain number of 4x4 shipments per year?
Now it's not by how many times I can do it by a year. The limitation per year is the amount. So let's say, for example, if I ship 3 times a year under the category 4x4, and my total cost, the total cost of my packages are in the 1,600 total during the entire year. That's it.
Got it.
So my restriction is I cannot ship more than 1,600 a year.
So maximum 4 shipments, like
$1,600 a year. That's the limit.
Got it.
But here is the interesting thing. People might say, "Oh, okay. So my limit is 1,600 per year. I'm gonna ship in one shipment. Let's say in one shipment, I'm gonna ship 4 splash or 4 or 5 perfumes, and that's like $1,600. You cannot do that because there is a restriction also on how many items of that same item you can bring in one shipment.
Yeah.
Because if you bring, let's say, for example, I want to ship 4 pair of shoes or 4 perfumes. If you ship more than 3 of those, it's considered a commercial importation.
Yeah.
And that's when you get stuck with customs. These kind of things you don't know. And
no, I found that out. So we have a 4-person setup here in the studio, and so I tried to buy 4 microphones in the same shipment. And yeah, I came across this rule and I was basically told straight up that it's just not going to happen. I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense because it's borderline business then.
Yeah, anything that you want to bring, even if it's under the 4x4. Oh, okay, so it's less than $400 and my weight is less than 8.5 pounds or 4 kilos, but I'm going to bring 5 of those same items. No, you cannot do that. You can just, the restriction is up to 3 of the same item and that's it.
Sure. And with the 4x4, I've done quite a bit of purchasing through the program myself with different providers, and they all work a little bit differently, particularly when it comes to consolidation of packages. And that's important with the 4x4 because obviously you've got very defined limits. Some companies will consolidate automatically and you don't have a choice. Others just will not consolidate anything. And so you just need to do a little bit of research in terms of that particular company and how they operate. Would you agree? Or do you have like a particular provider in mind that you're happy to recommend for 4x4, or you're not comfortable?
Well, I personally, and again, I am the customs agent for DHL and I can talk for DHL. We've been customs agent for them for, my father started 25 years ago, probably more, 27 years ago. And I've also worked for DHL before they become our clients. So I worked for them for a while. And I know their process, their internal process are pristine. They take care absolutely of every detail. They might, they might have a little flaw here and there, but they are like, for me, the best about shipping internationally.
Sure.
Internationally.
But do they have their own, consumer-based 4x4 program though? Like, can I go to, DHL and just go, look, I want my stuff, or do I have to go through a third party? Yeah, right.
Yes, they do. And then they are also, we're talking about personal packages, personal effects, but they also have this e-commerce program that, if you, for example, have a business of, you want to export hats to the US and you want to send, certain X amount through courier, they have a program for e-commerce for that. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
That's great. I want to dig into that on another episode, because exporting products, like Ecuadorian products to the world, I think is fantastic, and not enough people do it in my opinion. So let's definitely pencil that for a detailed chat. But in terms of the packages themselves, what happens if, let's say, a package arrives here in Ecuador but it doesn't have my contact information on it? Does it go to a black hole? Do I ever see it again?
One of the very first things, and actually responding to your one of your first questions, what do I need to know, or what do I need to have in mind before shipping, is you need to provide all your full details when you send a package. If you're going to send a package, you need to provide your full name, or again, the person that is going to receive the package here in Ecuador. So you need to provide your full name, your cedula number or your passport number if you don't have it, your email address, and local Ecuadorian phone number. Nobody's going to call to a US number here. Once the package arrives, they will call you or they will email you. The majority of the times they email you, and actually you receive an email 25 hours prior the arrival of the shipment. So if they don't see any contact information, the package is going to stay there and nobody is going to tell you.
No one's going to know. It's just going to sit there.
Nobody's going to know. And it can be any courier. It can happen with any courier. When you send these packages, you need to provide this full information, otherwise they're not going to call you. So the other thing that you need to keep with you always is your tracker, your tracking information, your tracking number. Once you give the package to the office, to the courier, they're going to give you a little document. If you purchase on Amazon, you're going to have a tracking info. Keep that tracking info always with you, because that's the only thing that you will have to check.
So if you lose that, you're basically screwed, right?
It's the only way to find and track your shipment. That's it. If you don't receive any information here and you know that the package is about to arrive, the very first thing that they're going to ask you here in any courier, any office, give me your tracking info. What's your tracking number?
Sure.
So that's very important.
Just where, let's say, this happened, we sent a package into Ecuador and I forgot to put my details on it. That package is just going to sit in a warehouse in Guayaquil somewhere or
forever and ever.
Forever.
So yeah.
Like, so there's no like 10-year limitation period or no.
They can stay there for a year. Usually after a year, they just take them to a deposit where they, after a year, they just destroy it, or they,
Right.
you have an entire year to claim your package.
Got it.
If I don't know, if after 6 months and you found your package, you can actually claim it.
Mm-hmm.
But probably you're gonna pay a penalty. A fine, the famous fines for not claiming your package.
But after a year, so for example, I know airports are pretty famous for having these weird auctions where you can just go and bid on a random bit of luggage that obviously belongs to some. There's nothing like that in terms of the goods that aren't claimed. They just get completely destroyed or burnt or whatever.
After a year, they get or donated or destroyed, one of those. But you have an entire year to claim those. And of course, if you go and claim that after 30 days, you're going to pay a fine. That's the law.
Sure.
The law says that if you don't claim your package 30 days before after the arrival, you're going to pay a fine, a multa, penalty fee of $225.
$225.
$225, which is basically 50% of the main salary here.
Sure.
Next year, if the main salary increase, the fine will increase.
My understanding is they're still trying to figure that out for next year. Do you know, have they settled on the minimum salary for 2024?
Not yet. I think they haven't said yet. This new government haven't said how much it's going to be next salary.
Yeah.
But be ready, because the fines are going to go up, are going to increase, and they will always increase according.
Everything's going to increase, not just the fines, but if you're applying for a visa, for example, all those amounts are basically pegged to the minimum salary as well. So it does shift everything here.
Yeah. So basically, you have to be very careful with these fines. You can avoid those fines.
Yeah.
So
awesome. I completely agree. Those fines are a big issue, but there's other fines too that people can be hit with. It's not just a late fee. So for example, I know some like talking about household shipments. I know that there's some providers make you pay a certain amount of deposit because they are expecting additional fines or additional release fees. Can you run me through that particular scenario and any, I guess, unexpected fees or taxes that can be sprung on people? Because I know that happens a bit.
Usually, I know how Ecuador Moves and how Vicky works, extremely transparent. And Vicky always advise the clients. Like, for example, right now, give you a very quick example. The law on household shipments just changed in July of this year. It changed in a way that, if we see any mistakes on your list, the list that you provide, because the list of your items needs to match with the things that are being inspected, because everything is inspected for household shipments. They're going to open your boxes. And the law says right now, if we found any mistakes, let's say, for example, in the list says that box number 1 has 8 shoes, and I open box number 1 and I see 4 cups of coffee, that's a mistake on the list. And because of that, you can get a fine of $225.
So each mistake? Or...
No.
Okay.
For the entire shipment, it's one fine. For the entire shipment. Even if you find 1 or 10, it's a fine.
There's always going to be some mistake there, right? There has to be.
It's almost impossible. Well, we have with Vicky, we have clean shipments that they have
100% correct.
But,
wow, that's incredible.
But some of them we really have to fight with customs and explain, so there are some things with labels and stuff that we have to explain to the inspector, like, no, this is not a mistake.
There's going to be translation issues too.
Yeah, that's actually what customs agents do behind the curtains is basically, this is my time here. Once your shipment here, the container arrived, Vicky and I were just behind and we're fighting. We have to talk to the inspectors. We have to let them know this is not a mistake. We have to clarify. I mean, there's a lot of things, not just, here's your container, it arrived. It's going to be inspected. Good luck. No. There's a lot of work and fight behind for our clients for that. And a lot of clarification. But the fines basically right now is that for any mistake, 1 or 10, it's going to be a $225 fine.
Yeah.
But before this new regulation that it's just been published since July, before that, for if they when the inspectors found mistakes in the shipment, they say they start inspecting boxes and they say, okay, so you have mistakes here in the list. Sorry, we cannot continue with this inspection. Where you will have to now request a pre-inspection, which is absurd, which basically is to request a pre-inspection to correct the list, and you go again and do the pre-inspection, do the corrections of the list, and then you have to do another final inspection to verify that the pre-inspection that you did was correct. That was completely absurd. And I am so happy that our previous Sinai director eliminated that thing. And again, we don't have any other second inspections or pre-inspections to correct another inspection, but we have the fine. So if you realize how just the movement of a container, one inspection involved like $600, $700 for every inspection, for every movement of container, is a lot of money.
It certainly adds up. No, I'm glad they've made that change too. It sounds like someone's using a little bit of common sense, which is fantastic.
Basically common sense. It's common sense, exactly.
Awesome. That's very helpful in terms of the household goods shipment. And but let's move on to a slightly different theme and the personal effects and air travel. And so, am I just allowed to bring in whatever I want as long as it fits in my suitcase, or how do I find out what is allowed and what is not allowed?
Well, there is actually, like I say, always go to the main source, which is the aduana.gov.ec main website, and there is a list of personal effects that it's published. The list, unfortunately, on the website has not been updated with the last regulation that was in September this year, but the items that you can bring are the same. What have changed are like basically the amount of things that you can bring now, which is even more. For example, now you can bring up to 5 liters of alcohol. Before this new regulation, you were able to bring just 3. The sizes of the TV also have changed. It was like 30 inches. Now it's like up to 60 inches without paying any taxes.
I think it was 32 inches, but
32,
very similar.
32, and now it's like 60, up to 60. So you can actually find what I can bring on the main website. What I can bring, what personal effects I can bring. Basically, you can bring vitamins, you can bring your clothes, you can bring electronics, but there is also a limit on the amount of things that I can bring.
I think they doubled the supplements as well. From memory.
Now you can bring like up to 8 kilos of
That's a lot.
vitamin. That's a lot of vitamins and supplements.
That's really cool. And this kind of moves into muling territory because that's kind of how they operate. And so let's say, for example, the law says I can bring in a 60-inch TV. Fantastic. I get excited on Amazon. It's Cyber Monday. I buy a 75-inch TV, and now what happens? I try and bring in that through the airport. I go to customs. Customs stops me at the airport and says, "Sir, your TV is too big." What happens?
If you bring your TV, like what is actually regulated right now with you, if you bring one TV up to that size, you can bring it with you without any problem.
Sure, but 75 inches is bigger than 60, so it's not allowed. So what would happen?
That's not allowed. Oh, they will. Well, you will pay. Actually, they will tax that TV.
So they'll tax it.
They will tax it. It's not that they're going to keep it. They're not going to confiscate it, but they will tax it. Yeah.
How would they do that? So, for example, it's a 75-inch TV. They're just going to find the model number, Google what I may have paid for it, and then...
When you bring those kind of items, you make sure first of all, you bring your invoice with you. Make sure you have your invoice, because that's the very first thing they're going to ask you at the airport. And second of all, how they tax it? Well, there's a list where the percentage of tax is based on the size of the TV. That's why customs is so they emphasize the sizes of the TV, because the percentage of tax is based on the size. So they're gonna go to the list. Okay, this is like over 60, and then it says X amount of percentage, which I don't know. I can't remember exactly the amount, but you're gonna be taxed for sure.
So they're just gonna treat it like any other similar item that someone's gonna be importing, and you're gonna be paying that.
It will be considered as a commercial importation.
Sure.
So yeah.
But that's very helpful. Now, moving on to the concept of mules. Now, This is a bit of a tricky one because they operate in a legal grey area, basically. Can you just walk me through, like, in this context, we're not talking about drugs or anything like that. We're talking about someone in the US in particular bringing goods for people here in Ecuador. Can you just walk me through how that works and some of the pitfalls that you need to look out for?
Well, basically what Mules, here in the expat community, we know Mules is basically a person, a passenger that comes and goes very often, back and forth, and bring things for people. The amount of things that this mule brings is based on the list of the personal effects, based on the amount that I can bring. So the mule, at least a person that it's been doing this for a long time, they are very aware of the limits, of the weights, of the amounts. So based on that, they do it. What some of them might not know is that even though that they've been, and the risk is for the person, the mule. I don't like how that sounds, but anyways, I don't know why they put the mule, but the risk is for the mule. What they sometimes they don't realize is the high risk that they run if they get stopped at the airport, they get inspected from an officer, from a customs officer, and they will inspect all your luggage. Let's say, for example, this person comes with 2 luggage, 3 luggage, and they start realizing and see that some of these items are not theirs. Of course, a mule knows that I have to take all the tags, names, because they receive all the packages from the US, from people from all over, and they normally what you do is you take off the tags, you take things from the boxes, and you put it in your bag, because you're bringing things like pretending it's yours. That's basically what they do. Yeah. Which is fine. I've done it. I mean, I've done it. I've done it a few times, but it's very risky. It's very, very risky. I've seen people, and I actually, I have a case, especially from a person. I'm not gonna say who the person is. It's an expat, and this person was stopped in customs with I think it was like 10 or 12 bins full of things, because this person was muling, and this person was doing this for years. It was never stopped at the airport. They never even thought in 100 years that they will ever be stopped. And they actually thought that what they were doing was legal, because they were just bringing, their things. And
they've done it so often that they just felt invincible.
And they were doing it for years, but it took one time that they got stopped. Even though that they were careful, that not having tags and names and things like that on the things, but they saw the amount and they knew that they were muling, that they were like an informal courier, and that's when the law goes.
And what happened?
Well, first of all, they will confiscate everything. That's what actually happened. They confiscate everything. They will keep it and confiscate it in a storage with customs. And of course, the things, you will be able to claim some things and pay taxes of the things that you're bringing. But some of the things, based on the amount of, let's say, for example, vitamins, there were like hundreds and hundreds of supplements, vitamins, that once you pass the amount of what the personal number of things that you can bring, it's when they say, so you pass the amount. But the vitamin supplements have restrictions from the health ministry, so need permission. You don't have the permission, so they will keep it. You're not going to be able to release it.
Got it.
So it's very important to be aware of that. The claw, I mean, for these people, actually, it was a nightmare. We had to intervene as not only as customs agents, but also as lawyers specialized in customs. To make the story short, we were able to save the entire shipment. But
did you have to pay a big fine?
They had to pay a big fine. They had to pay
wow.
a big fine. They had to pay a big fine, but they released it because they had like people, their customers were all over them. So
it is risky. That's the bottom line. It's a way of getting goods here, and I do it. I'm waiting on a package right now, but I know that there is a good chance that if this guy gets stopped, I'm either going to lose my package or I'm going to have to effectively contribute to his fine amount and pay some more.
Sometimes when I read like comments on people saying like, oh, I had this before. I have bring 100 cigars with no problem. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
You
but
were
one
lucky.
time, you got lucky.
You were very lucky. Let me tell you, you were very lucky. But that doesn't mean that it's allowed or it's going to happen to another person.
And from my experience, one of the issues with the mules is once they get stopped once, then they're a target.
They were target, and believe me, they have not able to do this again. Yeah, that was it. That was it. I mean, so. You get definitely target every time you go and you enter again to Ecuador. So.
Sure. No, I think that's very helpful. Thanks for going deep on that particular topic, because I know it's one that people can get unstuck and it's easy to trust people. And the most obvious risk before we even get to the customs risk is that it's an unregulated industry. So you have to trust the person that's bringing in the stuff, and there are stories there too. See.
I understand completely why this is, and again, this mule service and something that probably people doesn't know, because again, I go in meetings with officials, with people in customs, with directors, and I know that these people are always tracking Facebook, so be very, very careful. Be very careful. I'm telling you this as your friend, as your community friend. Very careful. I mean, because I've seen, for example, posts not from expats but from Ecuadorians that they post actually on Facebook like, I'm flying in November, I'm flying in December, I'm bringing, and Senai is tracking these services.
Yeah, wow. So there's like agents in there.
Yes.
Specifically looking out to catch mules now, you're saying. Yeah.
I mean, and a very quick example. Let me give you, I witnessed, it was like probably 6 months ago. Is a very good friend of mine and very sweet girl. Unfortunately, and she has a pretty good, nice business. She provides invoices, she provides facturas and everything for her. She has a clothing business. She brings everything from the U.S. She's not a mule. She buys in the U.S., but she brings it with her in her luggage.
So.
And of course, what are you doing? Doing that? You're avoiding tax. You're not paying taxes.
You're bringing in business stuff, and you shouldn't be doing that.
So exactly, but it's her business. So she has a store and everything, and she makes Facebook Lives 2 times a week. And just one day, the SRI and customs knocked her door, posting as clients, and they were like posting as clients, and she was showing, and suddenly a bunch of police. I mean, it was
whilst doing the Facebook Live.
No.
Oh, okay, Jesus.
No. It was traumatic for her.
Yeah, no doubt.
They took everything away at that second. They had no mercy. These people have no mercy, no mercy. So be extremely careful. What you're publishing out there.
Absolutely. That's really good advice. I mean, in Facebook in general, I think you just need to be a little bit careful what we're posting, but taking extra special precautions in this instance. And like talking about the mistakes that people can make, obviously posting online, that can be one, but are there any other mistakes that potential first-time shippers should be looking out for? We've covered a few already, I know, but are there any extra?
Well, definitely always go to the main source if you have doubts about how to ship. Don't rely only on the information that the courier provides in origin, because they are not aware of what's going on here.
How could they be? How are they going to know the regulations in all the countries around the world? That's an impossible task.
Yeah, even the airlines provide the wrong information about passengers, and the famous embargo that so many expats talk about. Well, they want to bring luggage, especially during this time of the year. And I don't know why airlines at the airport says, no, it's customs, this is restrictions in Ecuador. No, this has nothing to do with Ecuador customs.
Just trying to save on fuel, or what you put it down to?
No, it's basically some airlines during certain type of the year, not necessarily during December. It can be any time during the year that they have their own high seasons, high demands, when the demand is so high that they restrict passengers of what amount of luggage you can bring, even if you want to pay extra. They don't allow it because of the embargo. The embargo is basically a a restriction from the airlines, not from the country that you
Sure.
fly.
But it's just basically saying we're full of baggage right now, therefore we
They
can't
just
take any more.
No, they don't want to look bad. They just say to the passengers, they just say like, oh no, right now Ecuador is not allowing. I don't know why they say that. No.
I mean,
but-
to make themselves look like
Yeah.
they're not the enemy.
They're
Yeah.
not gonna like the airline. They're not gonna say to you, we don't allow you to bring. I don't know if because there is contract issues, service issues. They can get in problems. I don't know. But this is definitely not an Ecuadorian customs.
Wow, no, that's not very
Restriction.
yeah, it's not very transparent from the airlines. Is there any way to fight that with the airlines? Have you come across any successful scenarios?
Not directly. Like and this is another exception that probably very few people know.
Yeah.
That when you let's say for example, and I have many cases of those of expats that they are at the airport. They are bringing 6 luggage.
Mm-hmm.
The airport says you cannot bring 6 because of the embargo. You can only ship 2. So they got stuck with 4. What they do in that moment is that they have the option to ship it through a courier.
Mm-hmm.
DHL, UPS, FedEx. Do not ship through Ecuadorian post, please. Do not. No.
Why is that? What happens?
It's
Nothing.
a nightmare. Sorry, Ecuadorian Post, but it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
I will go into that in a minute, but you can ship your luggage separately through a courier,
Mm-hmm.
but there are conditions to do that, and the condition is that you need to fly, and you need, let's say for example, you're flying through American Airlines with your 2 luggage, and you ship 4 of your luggage through DHL. The luggage that you're shipping separately need to arrive under a time period of 20 days. Once you arrive, you have 20 days for those luggage to arrive and to claim it as personal effects. That exception is called luggage of passenger that it's not coming with. I don't know how to say this in English, but it's equipaje de pasajero no acompañado. So it's like not how you say that, not
It's goods unaccompanied.
unaccompanied personal effects.
Same.
Unaccompanied, exactly. That's in English. So you can do that, but there are conditions and there are also restrictions to that. And you can those luggage, you can ship your clothes, your used clothes. It's the only exception that allows you to bring your clothes under that exception. That exception is so exceptional that it's not even published.
Yeah, right.
It's not even out there. Why?
So is this a backdoor way for me to get some secondhand clothes into Ecuador with this exception, or no?
The only
No.
way is that you fly with that. I mean, you have to.
I'm gonna have to pay a lot of money through the couriers eventually, though, right? If I'm at the
Yeah.
airport, I'm assuming they're going to be pretty expensive. The courier options once I get there.
Yeah, because they're gonna charge you based on the weight.
So not a great plan
Yeah.
for getting secondhand
I've
clothes here.
I've seen people paying like, I don't know, like $8,000 for luggage that
okay.
ship through a courier, but they don't have any other option to do that. So
Wow.
yeah.
No, that's very helpful, Anna. Any other last minute tips around the customs and shipping that you have?
Well, customs is fascinating for me. I know that for a lot of people it's a nightmare, and a lot of people they just satanize Ecuadorian customs sometimes. And yes, sometimes might seem very unfair and confusing, but the best way to somehow do this correctly is go to the source. The main source of information, main websites, Senai website that I'm sure you can publish that later. Contact a customs agent, and then when I say that, is where like we have our certification, we're registering the Ecuadorian customs.
It's very important
We're
that
licensed
they
Ecuadorian
know
customs.
and they keep up to date with the laws here. I've seen some pretty big horror stories happen with customs agents that, you know, maybe they've been applying something that doesn't actually exist, but ultimately you as the consumer, you're going to lose out if that happens.
So yeah, I mean, facilitators, might be may be informed, but a licensed customs agent that is on that day by day and on the law every day, it's a completely different thing. So
I agree.
go to the source, go to the main website of Senai. You know, and if you have any questions, of course, contact me.
I wish I knew you when I first came to Ecuador.
A lot of people say that to me. A lot of people say, I wish I would knew you before.
See. But like I have a love-hate relationship with customs here because that's actually the reasons I'm in Ecuador. Is my origin story is I came to Ecuador for kite surfing. My gear was being sent in to Ecuador unaccompanied by me. And that was just such a huge mess that it took me months. And by the time I figured out that mess, I met my partner and started to like keto and all the rest of it. So in a way, if it wasn't for, I'm just going to call it the inefficiency of customs, I probably wouldn't be in Ecuador today. So in a way, this is like a bit of a silver lining for a personal point of view. It's like, okay, it's not all bad with customs. Sometimes unintended consequences work out to be okay in our circumstance. So, Anna, thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I think a very comprehensive guide to shipping and customs in Ecuador. And so if you do have any questions for Anna or Ecuador Moves, how do they want to contact you or Ecuador Moves?
Oh, well, you can contact me through the Cuenca Expats and Friends group, which, by the way, I am more than happy to provide information for our community. Through my email, I can leave you my email, logisticscardexpress@gmail.com. Or my WhatsApp. I'm very available too. So also for household good shipments, don't forget Vicky's Pizza, Ecuador Moves.
We'll probably do a episode just on household shipment because it's a bunch of rules associated with that. So at some point we'll focus on that.
That's a complete different world. That's an alternative universe for shipments. So definitely it's something that we will need to cover with. I would like to have Vicky here, of course, because she's amazing.
Fantastic. So thanks, Anna. And if you'd found this information helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, if you're in the market to rent or buy property, feel free to check out our listings at YapaTree.com, or feel free to provide your preferences to us and we'll do the searching for you. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Take care.
Ciao.